for long distance to fetch water, I now understood, and I now got it into reality that this is real. And that is when it struck me the most that people carrying these challenges, are the ones who are least most in decision-making tables or even included in these spaces. And so that was basically my turning point. I realized that climate change was not only an environmental issue for me, it was more of a human right issue, and not only human right, but also development issue and a justice issue. And so that's when I decided that I could not only simply wait and sit and witness these challenges, I had to become part of the solution myself.
That's really amazing, Hillary. I think, the first step that you've taken makes a big difference there. So regarding communities, I'd like to ask, indigenous communities have long understood weather patterns, as we know, and they have also understood land and seasons through their lived experience. What does that knowledge look like in practice? And why do you think it is still under-recognized in global climate responses?
Say that indigenous knowledge, basically, it's not only theory, my dear, it's also practical, and it's also lived experiences accumulated over generations from our forefathers. And in Samburu, I can say that elders traditionally used to observe these behaviors of, let's say, examples of livestock, how they migrated from one place to another, from the birds, how they move from east to west, from the flowers when they certainly bloom or when they wither. And then not only that, but also through directions, wind direction, if it goes to east or goes to south, that says something. And then also, one key thing that I always remember my great grandpa doing was reading the stars. I still hope to learn more about it, but they used to anticipate a seasonal change by reading the stars. And so pastoralist communities also, I can say that they practiced rotational grazing. That is something that is more sustainable right now, before even sustainable land management became a global discussion. So livestock were more strategic to allow the ecosystem to recover and remain reproductive. So this is not just theory, it's practical, and they used to do it even before then. And so this challenge is not that indigenous knowledge is not good. It's just there's lack of value in it. The challenge is that the global system often fails to recognize this value honestly, from what I've experienced and seen, and that climate crisis is teaching us that no single knowledge system has the answers, not science, not only indigenous, but we need our science and both indigenous knowledge to work together. And this will help the community, and also not the community alone, but also the most affected by climate change. They're basically the holders of solutions. So yes.
Yes, I think as you rightly pointed out, no a single knowledge system has answers. It's always a combined knowledge. And definitely, I think indigenous communities have a lot to contribute in this area. Coming to the northern Kenya area, it's already experiencing climate crisis through droughts, floods, and displacement. Yet, the most affected communities often have the least influence in decision making. So, why does this imbalance persist and what needs to change urgently here?
Okay, that's very true. And what I can say is that many climate decisions are still made far from the community most affected. They just happen in policy rules, but they barely bring it down to the grassroots communities at the grassroots level. So what I can say is that policies are often developed in national and, of course, national and international forums, in those decision-making tables. And then they later implement it in communities, which is not bad. But the problem is there's no, what can I say? There's no meaningful participation from the local community or the local people that are most affected. And so pastoralist communities understand their realities better. And trust me, the ones who face the problem are the ones who hold the solution the most than anyone else. And so, for example, let me say, women, this is a reality. Women usually are the first to notice that the water sources in our communities are shrinking, those places that they fetch water. And then the youths are the most often one see migration patterns, of changing. Like right now, I can witness where I live, we're starting to see zebras coming to the city, coming to the town center. That's something telling us that, hey, it's not getting good. the weather is not good or there's drought coming. And so elders observe this environmental shift over decades. They have knowledge, you know. The problem is, like I said before, is that it's not lack of knowledge. It's actually an equal access to power for me and for my community. What needs to change is genuine participation, okay? From the policy rooms to the decision making to the implementation to the strategy and everything. Communities should not only be consulted, they need to be the one to design, actually co-design and be the decision makers. And I believe that nothing about us should be decided without us. That's always my theme. Yes.
Right. What I understand is policies is developed in national and international forums, and there's no meaningful participation from local community. Also, you pointed out that different people, that is women, youth, or even any other, experience all of the environmental shifts differently, and they experience different as they experience different roles in society. They all of them experience different kind of environmental shift. And I understand that you've also had a lot of experience with gender equality. And so, pointing to that, I want to ask, your work connects gender equality, climate resilience, and indigenous rights together. So, how do you integrate these areas into your day to day work without losing focus or direction in it?
So yeah, that's a very good question, and I get it a lot with it. But let me tell you something: all these things intertwine, like they just connect in one or another. Gender, peace, climate, and everything. They just work together. Like for me, it's very impossible to separate it. You know why? Let me give you an example. When drought hits, that I've said, girls and in our community are the ones who go fetch these waters, and they go where? They go very far. They even go up to 10 kilometers to get for this water. And then, unfortunately, it happens that they get, of course, when drought comes, it comes with insecurity. There's a lot of cat rustling, there's a lot of conflict, you know, because of the scarce resources. And then it happens that they end up encountering, I can say a predator, yes, that affects them either GBV in one or another. So you see, these things just intertwine. So when we go for these community outreaches and we try to implement programs and create awareness, we bring it all together. We create awareness that there are laws against GBV, there are laws against these retrogressive cultures, there are laws in place for peace for you guys, there are laws for you guys to access water at the right point, you know, all this. So it's hard to really separate it. So what I can say is that when livelihoods are affected, from my experience, I can say is that mostly girls are the ones who leave school the most. Another incident is when drought comes in, when drought hits and takes out our livestock, the first person to actually drop out is the girl. You know why? Because in our culture, they tend to be exchanged for dowry. What I mean is a girl would rather not go to school and then be married off to an elder guy in exchange for dowry. You see how that intertwine? So when natural resources become scarce, tension between communities increase. Climate change affects not only education, it affects also the health of the community because a woman who's about to give birth cannot really go far because of the insecurity or the bandits or this and that, or maybe the drought or the flood. And then there's also livelihoods. And then all this is just a human right. They just intertwine simultaneously. So this is why I can say proudly that my work focuses on people. It's not just environment outcomes. And whether I am working for ICAN or Miss Climate Kenya, I try and engage everyone. That's why it's called Inclusive Culture Action Network, engaging leaders, advocates from everywhere, globally, grassroots and everything. So my goal is the same in all this, is to ensure that the most affected communities are the center of the solution and they know their rights. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Hillary. And that's really good that you've done all of this. Like, you're going for community outreach, you're getting all of them together, the engaging leaders, advocating, and all of that. Also, you've mentioned regarding a particular section of society, which is with respect to the culture. When natural resources are affected and health is affected, girls are the ones who are affected the most when livelihoods are affected. So, with respect to that itself, there's an important question that comes up because it's important for a girl to represent herself, to get her voice out. Now, for a young girl in a rural society in Kenya with limited access to education or the internet, what is the most realistic first step she can take towards becoming a climate leader?
Wow, that's a very good question, and it hits my heart the most because it reflects my journey. What I can say is that leadership does not begin with social media or funding or international platforms. It starts with that small forum that you engage in and you let your voice speak as a young girl. Matter of fact, we don't have voices in our community because I think of culture, but one thing is how I started is going for that meeting, understanding what is happening. Are they putting our decision in place? We are the ones who know when the water is about to dry up. I am the one who's going to fetch this water for you to eat that food. So I went for those meetings. I rather observe and learn and see. And then I speak my voice out, even though it may not be considered. But you see, I have managed to enter. So what I can say is that a young girl can start by organizing happy as to come together. If she's in school, she can participate in community meetings, join a school environmental peace club or any club, protect local water sources, or even plant trees and care for trees. I'm a mother of one and I'm trying to encourage my boy on the importance of conserving environment. He's a champion right now as we speak, planting trees. I think even more than I have planted so far. So you see, leadership is service, it's the most important thing is to understand that leadership is not a title for that young girl or that young lady trying to make a difference. It's more of service. And many of the strongest leaders I know, they started by helping their own communities long before they even the community recognized them or they even understood what they're doing. So yes.
Yeah, I think the major takeaway, that I've understood from this is leadership is not a title, it's a service, and that's really important. As you've mentioned, that how you, as a young girl, started going out, tried to understand all of this, attended those meetings, irrespective of whether it's heard or considered or not considered. And look what you've done and what you've become right now, Miss Climate Kenya, and it has helped you come out and bring out your voice now, and there are millions of people that get that are benefited through your voice right now. So you've helped mobilize thousands of young people. What would you say to these young people who are committed but feel overwhelmed or burned out by the scale of climate crisis?
So yeah, that does happen a lot. And what I can say is first acknowledge your feelings and they are valid. It does happen. We are not in a sprint race, you need to breathe sometimes, it's okay, it's valid. And what I can say is from this concept is that climate change can feel overwhelming, honestly, because the scale of the challenge is so big or so enormous, and we're just trying to make the little we have a difference with the few resources we have, with the knowledge we have. But one thing I remind young people and even myself is that we are not expected to solve this crisis alone. You know, I have the community. They can make better voices. I am just one, but our community is whole together. We have the government of Kenya or the leadership in place. When we all come together, it's gonna be a bit easier. So you're never alone in this, and that you need to focus on your sphere of influence. Each and every one of us has their strengths, right? I am a communication specialist. I love photography. I love documentary. That is my way of speaking. Yes, because I can go speak it out and then people will be like, where have you spoken? What have you done? But with the evidence of my work, it's going to be better. And you see, for my community, there's power in media or there's power in vision. That's what I can say. When you do something, and you try to change, of course it's not going to be easy, but when you have documentary of what you've been doing from one place, from one stage to the other, they tend to see the change is good, from where they came from to where you're taking them, it's good. So what I can say is focus on your sphere of influence, and then it's also very important as an individual, always celebrate your wins, victories, be it small, be it big, celebrate them. And the most important thing is protect your well-being. it's fine to protect your well-being. It's actually advisable to protect it because you're the core of it all. And so build community. It's fine. But the most important thing is that the climate movement need people who can sustain their commitment over the long term, you see? Because if you cannot sustain yourself, then how are you going to make that impact or influence? So resilience is not just about community, but it's also about ourselves as an individual as well. So to the young people, be resilient, focus on your story of influence, celebrate the small wins, you remember you're not alone, and of course your feelings are valid. Yes.
Uh, yeah, as you mentioned that climate change can be overwhelming, and we certainly agree. And I think as a community, we can make it a lot better now. Coming together, it makes it easier instead of doing it individually. And even when you've mentioned about what each one can do with their own strength regarding, it could be photography or media or anything, and voice out. So even we actually tried to do something like that with our stability and survival stories, where we get a lot of young minds together, express themselves of how they've undergone some kind of crisis and how they've overcome it, inspire other young minds that are going through the same, so that anybody and everybody can form a community together and overcome it as a whole. So this is something even we've tried to do. And what I've understood is protect your well-being. Something that you've mentioned is very, very important through this, and celebrating the small wins. So, if you could redesign, like, you've also spoken about policies and all, and you've taken part in it. If you could redesign one global policy on climate or disaster risk management to truly center Indigenous youth and women, what would it look like? And what do you think is currently preventing such a shift?
So what I can say is that I always insist and I always try my best to make sure that um, it's mandatory for the indigenous women like us, not only women, but also the youth, inclusive of the persons with disability, to always be represented in decision-making tables and not only to simply participate, but be meaningfully participating fully. And I would like to ensure that climate finance directly reaches to grassroots organizations, not only at the front line, but also the grassroots. Like I said, they're the problem solvers, because they're the ones who are facing this problem. They're the ones who knows best. You can't fund a small, you can't come in as a big organization or something, which is fine. You can come in, but for example, let's just put this into table. There's a problem of drought. You want to bring in borehole water. And then you just come in as a well-wish or something, and then you say you want to put it here. You must include the community because they're the ones who knows the best place, the center of it. They're the ones who knows their problem the most. So they're probably the solution holders. And so too often, I can also say that too often resources are discussed in our name, but never reach us, honestly. And communities that are living with climate impacts every day, they should not have to fight for a seat at the table. They should be the ones at the front line, actually. And trust me, that will be more implementive for them even. It will work even more better. And they should always be there. That is something I would really, if I were to rewrite these climate policies, not just tokenism, but reality. Yes.
Uh, right. So I think, you've rightly pointed out that climate finance reaches grassroots organizations, and also, it's important to participate meaningfully, and resources assigned does not reach the right set of people, and there are multiple other issues that people may be facing. So, amongst all these issues that the young minds face, or even any other sections of society face, what is one concrete action that people can take today, not in the future, but right now, that would genuinely make a big difference in this area?
Um, Pardon, please repeat your question. My mind was running fast.
No worries. So what I wanted to say is, what is one concrete action that young people or any section of society can take today? That would genuinely make a big difference in this area amongst all the issues that they face.
Amazing. So let me start by giving an example of how I started mine. So one thing is we are charcoal burners. I don't know if you know what that is, but we cut trees to have a charcoal, to burn charcoal to be able to have firewood. And so I realized that our forest, which is so beautiful and amazing, it's decreasing over the years. Since I was a kid, actually, it's getting worse and worse and worse. So I saw this opportunity of coming in together. I applied for an organization, it's called FAO and all that. I gave in my project of I want to do a lot of restoration. And of course, restoration is going to be hard because these women cut this firewood because they need money to feed their kids. So if I'm coming in to tell them not to cut firewood, what will they be doing then to feed their children? So I need to have a solution for them, or they give me a solution. So one thing is, let me start with there, is that start where you are. Okay, I had nothing. I knew no one. I had no name, but I saw a vision and I saw a dream to come true. So the first thing is to identify one environmental challenge in your community and to take action. Okay, the thing is, you can never do it alone. Okay, you can, but you will go further with others. So join a local initiative. Protect the trees like I did. Educate your peers. I did a lot on school children, trying to educate them on importance of conserving the environment. Yes, your parent might be paying you school fees through cutting those trees, but in the next years, it's gonna suffer for all of us, even you and your future and your children. So another one is not only to educate your peers, but also try and reduce waste. As I use listening right now, another important thing is document climate impacts. Please document them. The actions is good, but document them for your own also reference in the future, and you see where you've come from. And also, please volunteer. Volunteer in these initiatives, volunteer in these groups, volunteer in those meetings that people go, in those volunteer projects of collecting around the environment and cleaning the spaces. Volunteer, go to teach children about one, two, or three things. Even do a little on home positive parenting trainings, And so as you volunteer, you have a voice. Please speak up. And another one is many people underestimate the power of small action. Trust me, they do add up. From me talking to teachers, talking to children, it came into the parents. I had another program come in for positive parenting. So you see these small actions come in. I try and bring the parents together and tell them, it's good you're doing this, but it's going to affect your future children. If you cut these trees, what's going to happen? This is how I show them. How does climate affect this if you cut these trees, They see, there's power in vision as well. So another one is that every moment begins with an individual deciding to act. Okay? You might get all the motivation you need, but it's also about you to act. And the future is not something that happens to us, it's something that we create it together. It's right now. So that's my message to the youth.
That was really a solid advice, Hillary. I think we all have a lot to take from this. Just to, summarize it, what Hillary mentioned was that a lot of people speak about problems, but we need to always be solution oriented and start small. Identify any one small environmental challenge in your surrounding and take action. We should not just speak, take action. Start with simple things like protecting trees, spreading awareness, speaking to students, speaking to teachers, and it will spread. It does spread because people do understand. And then I think, also another aspect is documentation. So, documenting the climate impact, volunteering in a lot of groups that have, similar idea. And I think when you spoke about cleaning spaces, we just had one cleanup drive that happened in Bangalore in India. And it was really impactful because, we tied up with another organization, as you've mentioned, volunteered in other organizations that had similar idea of cleaning up. and we got a lot of coverage. We got covered in magazines, newspapers through it. So I think this is how it spreads. So yeah, that's really important. And I think I would like to ask Mohanish here if he'd like to add something, and also open the floor for any questions if our audience may have. And that was wonderful, Hilary. Thank you so much.
I'm truly humbled. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hilary. You gave like a lot of wonderful advices, and we are really inspired by the work you have done for the community. So, Anusha, first we can take some questions from the chat. There's a question in the chat.
All right, let me just. Okay. So I think it was
Hey, hello.
Hi, Romain.
Yeah, just I am very happy to be here with you right now. Then the one question just ahead about this topic to our friend from just Kenya, because as you know, I am also in Africa.
Yeah, so I'd like to maybe first, we'll definitely take Romain's question, but I think first we'll address that was already there in the chat. Thank you, Sandra, for your question. So what she asks is there any climate crisis groups in place between indigenous groups and technological service providers offering alternates like, for example, with depleting surface and groundwater sources? Have you considered water from air to water converter devices to replenish water requirements? Also, conversion of seawater to drinking water for all the species. So Hilary, may I read it again or?
Yes, please.
Okay. So what Sandra was asking is there any climate crisis groups in place between the indigenous groups and technological service providers offering alternatives, like for example, with the depleting surface and groundwater sources? Have you considered water from air to water converter devices to replenish water requirements? So basically, is there any, middle ground between the technological and indigenous groups that can, help with the water, getting the pure water, like, considered water from air to water converter devices to replenish water requirements, also conversion of seawater to drinking water for all the species?
Amazing, amazing. So thank you for making it easier to understand. So yes, first to begin is that we have growing collaborations between indigenous communities. Not only the community itself, but within us, there are researchers. There are also technology providers, especially around climate adaptations, because they're the ones who are most affected. And so what I can say is that in Kenya, generally, we are seeing partnership in areas like water harvesting. It's very true. And drought early warning signs. And then we try to convert this communication system into local language that the community can understand, because most of them are a bit illiterate. And so to make it easier for them to understand, we also use a lot of symbols for communicating. And also these climate smart innovations that support the community, especially the pastoralist community. And so I can also say that, however, from my experience working in the northern Kenya specifically, many of these technologies are still widely not accessible at grassroots level, honestly. And that the biggest challenge is not just innovation, it's basically affordability. It's quite not affordable, and also the accessibility, and also whether the community are also involved in designing these solutions. They just bring in, but they don't really involve the community in real, pure, meaningful participation. So let me give an example from where I come from, Samburu. During drought, communities, we rely on water tracking and traditional water sources that often dry up very fast. So we are aware of that. And so technologies like water harvesting and also solar-powered boreholes have been introduced, which is true. I have seen it in some areas. They really do make real difference. When communities are owned, like if the community owned it and it's well maintained by them. And so one idea is like water from air devices, or seawater, not very much because we're pastoralists. And so in the northern part of Kenya, we don't have much sea, actually in the down part of Kenya. And so these are quite very interesting innovations that I will bring it in place for also our community. I'm also learning being here. So what I can say is that for me, the key point is that technology is very important. I am a person who loves technology myself, but it must be combined with indigenous knowledge from our forefathers, the one that community already is used to. And that community ownership is very important, when they feel that it's theirs, it's not from you, like it's from yours, but it's theirs, and that there's strong local system within it. Otherwise, the best innovation do not reach the people who need it the most. That's what I can say in general. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Hilary. I what I understand is technology combined with indigenous knowledge can be the most powerful because, and I hope this clarifies Sandra's question. I think we also have another question here, which is okay. So the next question is, are there organizations that can help young people who are passionate to bring change in pastoralist communities to create awareness about climate resilience?
Yes. Oh my goodness. There are a lot of organizations. There are a lot. Like all over, there are a lot, honestly. But the problem is tapping into those opportunities. You need to be very aggressive, especially if you're from an indigenous community like me. And then if you don't have even access to internet, you really have to go an extra mile to be able to access these opportunities. There are a lot. There are a lot. They come in, but you need to be, your antenna needs to be upper, to be able to tap into these opportunities. I am actually here because I do my best to actually tap in all these opportunities. Yes, so they are there and they really do help. There are people who come in with good intentions and actually help your community at large. And so if you just tap into the right system and the right circle, then it's good for each and every one of you. But yes, there are a lot. Yes.
Thanks for that, Hilary, again. I think that clarifies El Polo's question. We do have another question, which is
Anusha,
from
maybe you can, I think maybe they can also unmute and speak the questions. So if you want to ask questions, you can either raise your hand or you can type it in in the chat. Maybe we can start by taking Sarupia's question first.
Okay, so there was another question that's written. I am assuming that they are not able to speak through because of network issue. So I'll read it out. It's from Mapenzi from Kenya. He says from an organization known as Mapenzi Charity CBO, and he's happy to be the part of this platform. His question is, what role does technology and digital tools play in strengthening climate resilience among the young people? How can grassroots youth organizations access climate funding more easily?
Karibu, I know her. She's a she, yeah. And so thanks for that question. Like I said, technology is very important, as well as the indigenous knowledge from our forefathers. So imagine bringing in technology and the indigenous knowledge together. Let me give you an example of reality in the ground. When drought tend to come in, there's alert in our community. We have radios, okay? That is technology. We have smartphones. There's a number that you dial through your phone if there's a crisis of insecurity, like let's say an example of ghetto rustling. So the first thing is technology eases communication. Another thing it enables the community to understand these diagrams in a more visual way. When you show them the wind is going to this direction and then you show them this color, they tend to relate it more. So when they feel that the wind is going to the eastward, like I can say technology makes them understand a bit more faster. And then there's also a high level of adapting to this climate crisis that happens without a break. For example, if drought comes in and then there's cattle rustling happening nearby, they communicate a bit faster. So technology does swiftly a lot in terms of climate, not only climate, but also community. So it's powerful, especially if it comes in with indigenous knowledge. We tried before to actually try technology, but not incorporating the indigenous knowledge of our forefathers. But you know what? They will not even listen to us. For example, if we shared it through the radio that this is going to happen, but we've not consulted with the elder in the community telling him, what have you thought about this wind? Is it coming rain? Is it coming dry? So when you incorporate it together, it's unstoppable for the community, and also it's going to help the community at large to prevent such advanced climate crisis. Yes, and it's going to keep a few girls in school, and the mother knows that in the next 2 months it's going to be dry. She's going to help herself save money or do 1, 2, 3 things to help one's future girl. So yes, it does. It's good when it's matched, and it's easy for the community. It's even easy to understand. I hope I've answered your question, Lindsay.
Yes, I think we do have, Sandra raising her hand again. So we'll take her question. Sandra, can you please unmute?
Hilary, lovely to meet you. Listening to you is very inspirational. Can I ask you a question? Sometimes being very practical with all the challenges that are of, that the community faces, cities face, we're talking about humanity, right? Not just grassroots. It affects everybody in Kenya, right? The depletion of water resources. And it also affects the animals. You have this fantastic, amazing wildlife, forests, and animals, and it's just breathtaking. So I need to ask you, how prepared are young people to look for alternatives in face of all the challenges that come from I would say that the people that drive climate change are economically based, right? They think about rands and, well, they think in terms of currency. So what I'm saying is that's often, if it doesn't make them rich, they're not going to support anybody. So it means that young people need to take the initiative and look for alternatives that work, not just, maybe you could start in the community, because I think that's fantastic that you come from an indigenous background, because that's tapping into access to knowledge that people don't even factor into scientific data these days. Collaborations like this, for example, my concern is Kenya has a part of its coastline that attached to the oceans, right? Just about 300 kilometers, right? So, there is options, convert seawater, because that's a need out there. Creating dams of water, because of the sun, it's getting hotter, isn't it? The indigenous forests are getting depleted because people are set into old way of thinking. So that needs to change. How? So there has to be, so many things need to be put in place. Education, awareness, and then communication. How to utilize technology that will change their lives and ensure survival. Now that will get them thinking, because I can tell you from knowledge I'm in South Africa, and we're very first world and third world here, but and a very small percentage of people still live in indigenous situations. But I would say that the elders have so much knowledge to share, and always bring them into a think tank with young people. Young people have the energy and the know-how, right? Like yourself. It's fabulous to hear you talk. Hilary, put together young people, get things done. You can't get the people to actually bring the technology to you, darling. Young people can come up with a device themselves. You get that always. I mean, you sometimes you find a child in the village who has devised, created an innovation that converts like solar power, bring solar power to a village with very basic, know-how. There's so much that can be done. So I think the shift needs to be actually realizing that you have far more power as young people, right? Because you have access to, you come from your families, indigenous backgrounds, right? And utilize, you can be the bridge that actually links yourself to the technology that is available. There are organizations. I think they should be young people should actually ask, who can help us, but not like say, I need your help. Not in a way that you are asking. As part of an invention, a shift to bring change that will ensure the survival of every being, not just in the country, but on the continent, literally. Because climate, we all, even India is, is positioned along the equator. I'm sorry, I'm talking so long, but I'm just very passionate about rain and water and survival and, and our history going back to colonialism and how that has shifted resources and availability of financial resources for that matter. Thank you, Hilary.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you for that. And I really want to agree to what you've said. We are at the best position as youths to innovate, and very creative because we are the problem holders, so we have more solutions to it. So thank you so much. And I want to say that it's true that youths are very prepared, honestly. From all over the years, I can say is that they're coming together all over, they're leading these climate alternatives in very practical way, even with the limited resources, in place. I can say, for example, some youths are using simple innovations like water harvesting techniques, water recycling, and we're learning from them. I, as a pastoralist, I'm learning how to do, I'm a herder. So I'm learning how to do a lot on agriculture as well, water harvesting. When it rains, it pours here. So you see, small-scale renewable energy ideas such as solar changing system in their communities. So even without large funding or all that, there's knowledge and there's technology, and that youths are truly prepared by combining these innovations and community actions and the knowledge, and then we share this also through social media so that we can know each other from the coast, from the north, from the east. So yes, thank you so much. I truly appreciate that.
Thank you, Hilary. That was so gracefully answered. We have some questions in the chat as well as Pallavi has raised her hand. Let's take Pallavi's question first. Can you please unmute?
Hello. My question is, what were the challenges that you faced on a personal level when you worked on this climate advocacy cause?
Thank you so much, Palvi, for that question. I was actually looking forward to that question because honestly, like I said, being a girl from my community, you have no voice. So imagine a young girl like me trying to make a difference with my voice. So there's a lot that came in terms of tradition, like you are trying to devour our culture. You're not following this and that. So that is the biggest challenge when you try to make change in your community and they're used to another way of life or another routine or another structure. So it's the resistance. But with time and through documentation, and then they see the power of an empowered young woman trying to make a difference. So the biggest challenge is the resistance. But over time, it's coming in together, in place. I have young mentees and I have really good elders that respect my voice and they put me in those platforms and they even bless me because they see it's all for the good. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Hilary. That was really nice to know, how you've overcome all the challenges and how it has made you reach here the way, the place where you are right now. We have questions from Sarupya, which is mostly about your organization. Again, little bit about how you started out. He says, what are some of the major challenges you faced while starting your organization, ICAN?
Thank you so much for that question. One of the biggest challenge is, like I said, you start when you have nothing. So funding a youth and women-led organization that has begun is not easy. So the first one was actually getting funding, It was not an easy thing. But over time, through the work that I do, through the documentation and through the network that I have, it came in handy because before that I was working with an NGO. So they see what you do, there's proof of documentation, there's due diligence that is being done. So the biggest challenge was actually that. And also, ICAN came in place because of maybe a personal story that I went through. And so ICAN means actually Inclusive Culture Action Network, but it comes from a Bible that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's the core of I personally can make a voice and it can make an impact, It's more of a personal thing to a community thing. When I go to speak to the girls, they be like, it's you, Hillary. I'm like, yeah, it's me. I have done this. I have been through this. So if I can do it, you can do it, So that's the core of it. And so the biggest challenge was funding, but it came through and it always does, So yeah.
That's nice. So we also have Lucia, who has joined in from Croatia. So we'll take her question. Lucia, can you unmute?
Yes. My question is, what vision do you see for your organization ICAN in future?
Lucia, kindly pardon again. I've not had.
What vision do you see for your organization ICAN in the future?
How would you
Thank you
like
for that.
to
I hope.
in the future?
Yes. Okay, so ICAN is currently a community-based organization in Samburu. So not even in the future, in the next probably 6 months, it's gonna be an non-governmental organization, an international one. And so to be able to reach to the global spaces, so this funding comes to us so that we can send it to the grassroots community with the solutions that we have and the technology that we have in place to be able to help my community and not even look for other funders, to be like a funder for them, like to be, let's say, a godfather for them. So yeah, that's my biggest vision. And not only that, to also be able, we have an amazing landscape in Kenya. Oh my goodness, the northern part of Kenya is the best. So another vision for ICAN is actually to open an eco lodge that is self-sustainable, that can bring income to the community. They stop fighting over this grazing land and they see that they can turn their livelihoods into more better opportunities. So ICAN is just gonna be a sample of what they can vision to see in future if they wish to change their livelihoods for the better as they retain their knowledge, which is the indigenous knowledge. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilary. There's one question in the chat, which is because you've mentioned also about the network that comes in handy and it holds your hand and it supports you. So there's this person asking question. He says he's in Samburu, Kenya, and he wants you to please state this organization and how can someone access them. And his second question is is there a way climate enthusiasts can integrate indigenous knowledge with technology?
Yes, that is what we've been talking about. If you're very enthusiastic about climate and you have this indigenous knowledge, there's many ways you can integrate it. You use what you have, your social media pages, you document those things that you believe it's very important. And at the core that if you don't document it, someone else will not. So the first is you use what you have and where you are. Another one is these platforms are everywhere. Let's begin with LinkedIn. Let's begin with having my contact. You can share my email. Feel free to share my email if someone wants to reach out to me. And also Google, YouTube. Google is everything. Just search for climate. Like everything nowadays is on social media. And then do the daring of going to that email and write that email. Because if you don't, who will? And how will you get their contacts? Write for that email. Look for their social media handles. Follow them. DM them. So it's actually easy nowadays with technology. You don't have to go to the office. You can just meet them online. So yes.
Yeah, Mohnish, would you like to add something?
Yes. There are some more questions remaining. So I just want to check with Hillary if she has time, because we had yeah, told the session would be for an hour. But can we extend it for another 15 minutes, Hillary?
Yes, yes, please feel free to add.
Thank you so much. So, here Mihalo is asking, what preventive measures are advised to be done politics wise? Many laws are directly harmful to the environment in the sense of them allowing corporations to exploit it. Thus, going against them would be illegal. How do we stand in the regard of legality versus morality? So,
So
yeah,
thank you for that question. And one, sorry.
yes. So, yeah, some laws may not be morally correct, but because they allow corporations to exploit the natural resources. So, how do we stand between this legality versus morality?
So for that question, I can say, believe me, you're not the first to only notice that. So the first thing is you also need to sit down and look at the people who are seeing what you're seeing and the change you want to make. So you find your circle, you find your, I can say, energy or the vibe. And then now you do a petition. Everything nowadays with law is possible, and with the right energy or the right circle and the right vision that you have in place. So, of course, there are laws in place, and it's not going to be easy, especially if politicians are involved. But one thing is, who choose those politicians? It's the community, right? So you go back to the community and tell them this is what is happening to you guys with these policies in place, they're harming you in one way or another. So I believe the voice is what matters most, the community and the circle that you're in, and you're not the first to notice that change. So yes, I hope I've answered that question.
There's another question from Mepenzi. She's asking, climate resilience is not about responding your environment challenges, but also creating stronger, more inclusive communities. The young people have passion, creativity, innovations, and leadership needed to drive meaningful climate action. By investing in youth leadership and ensuring inclusivity, we build a more resilient and sustainable future for everyone. Having said this, she asked the question, how can young people be more effectively involved in climate policy development and implementations? What barriers currently prevent youth from participating in climate decision making?
So let me begin with what the first question is, what will you do to be part of this? The first is Mapenzi, be in those policy rooms. They call out for public participation. If you don't show up, how will your voice be represented? So go for those public participation for those policies, put your voice in place. And then another biggest barrier is the lack of awareness or the knowledge of these policies in place. So yes, that is to Mapenzi.
Yes. So we are really grateful, Hilary, that you patiently answered so many questions today. And thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us. And it was really inspiring.
Thank you, Antonio.
Your journey of personal resilience is also very amazing. And yeah, so thank you so much. Anusha, would you like to close today?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, once again, Hillary, it was, all the inputs that you've shared on how we can take a small step and, how we can utilize all the tools around us and how we can reach out through all the social media that we have. Everything, I think, now makes it a little bit more easier. And I'm sure audience must have felt a lot motivated to take up more opportunities in this area now, you being their inspiration. And we also look forward to more of collaborative efforts in the future. I once again wish you all the best, Hillary, from the whole team of MYC. and our audience. And thank you everybody for listening and joining us today and asking questions. Until next time, take care, stay alert, aware, and active. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.